It's been far too long, and we have to make sure we're in steady touch as we move ahead. It's so good to see you looking so well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
A lot of the water going under the bridge since first we got engaged in things about Kashmir, but I'm anxious for you to help us bring it up to date.
Okay.
And welcome. Welcome very much to Conversation. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend of mine and of the world, I would say. That's Shaheen Butt, and he's the chairman of an organization called Kashmir Mission USA, and he's involved with the Kashmir, understands well the situation in Pakistan, and particularly with focus on Kashmir. And Shaheen, my dear friend, it's a great pleasure to welcome you once again.
Thank you very much, Shannon. I appreciate that.
My good pleasure. We've done a number of programs. You and I've been in touch over the years and so forth. But maybe you could, for the audience, share your own, excuse me, personal background. I understand you have roots that go right into Kashmir, as it were, or even to Srinagar. I'm not sure. But could you share your own background, and then we'll talk about the situation, including the earthquake and the events that are going on now in that part of the world. But share your own background, please.
Well, Harold, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity once more, and we talked about it before also, to share my views and to update the audience about what's happening in Kashmir. As far as my background is concerned, I've come from, my forefathers come from Kashmir, occupied Kashmir, which is, occupied by Indian forces. My father's side is from Srinagar and my mother's side is from Baramulla, but both the families, they were almost kicked out from Kashmir about 80, 90 years back, and then this came back to
80 or 90 years
yes,
back. Okay.
Yes. And then they came to now what is known as Pakistan. Then of course it was all India.
Yeah.
And
right.
they settled down in Lahore, in Punjab, capital of Punjab.
So they had been in Srinagar when the British were in control?
No, yeah. Then they had an Indian Raja. It was Raja's rule, and Raja was at that time also. As a matter of fact, Kashmiris are suffering not from only 58 years. They have been suffering from almost 100 years.
It's a shame. It's the garden of the world. It's
beautiful
such
place.
a beautiful place. It has such a rich history. And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Known as a paradise on earth.
Yeah, I think
turned
it is.
Into a battlefield.
A battle, hell on earth.
Hell on
paradise to hell. I mean, and it really is.
That's right.
Anyway, so you've got roots there.
Yes. I have still relatives there, and now, of course, I was born in Lahore, Punjab, Pakistan, raised in Lahore, and then, of course, I luckily joined Army, Pakistan Army, and I stayed in the Army for about 10, 11 years.
That's a long time.
Yes. And then, of course, I realized that, for certain reasons, I thought that I was not making any difference into the reasons that
you obtained the rank of captain?
Yes, I was captain.
Because you're referred to as Captain Butt often by your friends, who
That's
are legion, I might say. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then after that, I came to America.
I don't mean to. What year would that have been?
1971.
71.
No, 1971 I joined, and 1980 I resigned. And my resign was accepted in 1981.
I see. Yes. And you came here more or less after that.
That's right.
Soon after that,
Soon after that I came.
And have made your way in New York.
Yes.
And so forth. But you have many friends and contacts with people in Pakistan. You understand it very well. And you've taken on the assumption of this role of chairman, and you have for a long time representing the cause of the of Kashmir.
That's true.
Which is something that is an extremely important question in an extremely important strategic part of the world, in an extremely important and strategic moment in the evolution of history that should be understood well. It is not nearly understood well enough, the situation in Kashmir by the American or the world citizenry. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I do. I do. I remember when I came to this country and I started talking about Kashmir, I even had to explain that Kashmir starts with K and not with C.
Yes.
Okay. But now after the events that happened, and particularly after 9/11, it is of course known to almost everybody. And then the earthquake that we had, a big.
We have a little piece of footage we're going to show a little later in the program about that. It was a horrible thing. It affected Muzaffarabad. Is that what it's called?
It affected almost 80% of Azad Kashmir and part of frontier part of Pakistan also, and of course a little part of not 10%, I would say 5% of it was occupied Kashmir, and the capital of Kashmir is Muzaffarabad and Bagh, which is a big huge area, and then all these areas, Mirpur, They were all very badly affected. as a matter of fact.
I
Yes.
can remember doing a program with the fellow with you way back when, if I may, who was from, what is it, not to the west there, and he became the president of Pakistan for a while. What was his name now?
Are you talking about the Prime Minister, Jamali?
Not that, Jamali. Yeah, Jamali was from, what's that province?
No, that is Balochistan.
Balochistan.
That
right.
was not a part of this accident.
No,
earthquake.
I know it was.
But
part
he was from Balochistan.
But if I may, I remember we did a program. Hey, we had a map. We should have had it here. We could have. We didn't. But it's so strategically placed, Kashmir.
Yes.
It's a jewel in the crown. China,
Yes.
Russia, India. I mean, it's so strategically placed in the middle, in a certain sense, geographically, of the Islamic Ummah,
That's
the
right.
larger Ummah.
That's
There
right.
is Kashmir, and it's a place of great contention, great animosity
Right.
between two great powers of Pakistan and India. Is extremely important
To nuclear powers.
to now nuclear powers, which is not a small matter at all.
Yes.
And it's a very strategic area. And there's a great deal of injustice from your perspective that has been characteristic of the time since the end of the British Raj and so forth. And maybe we could touch on some of that historical development that makes that area an area of contention and even violent confrontation among two peoples and so forth.
Well, as a matter of fact, Harold, if we go back a little bit, even before partition of India, Kashmiris have been suffering even when Hindu Raja was in charge of that province, even though that it was predominantly Muslim people, I would say about 95%. But even at that time, Raja had bought it. If I tell you that, it looks very funny now.
Yeah.
The Raja had bought it for 26,000 rupees, the whole Kashmir from English people.
How many?
26,100,000
2,600,000
rupees.
Yeah.
So
rupees,
in terms of dollars today, I think it's about $26,000.
26,000. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
The best real estate deal ever in the history of the planet, perhaps, except Manhattan Island, maybe, with $23
But the unfortunate part is that ever since they bought it,
Yeah.
they treated it like as their property.
Yeah.
Not only the land, but even the people of Kashmir.
That was the ruler who was Hindu of
Yes.
Kashmir.
Yes,
Bought it
yes.
from
From British.
the British.
Yes,
And yet the population was 95% Muslim.
that's true.
And there's almost built-in contradiction there that did not characterize other land divisions between Pakistan and India the way Kashmir lingers.
That's right.
It's an irredentist thing, some people would say, and it's a very important thing, and it's worth having some understanding of because of the strategic significance of
Right.
it.
So I would say the freedom movement that people of Kashmir wanted to be free, it started actually in 1831. The first time when the Muslim they wanted to practice the religion from their own.
1831.
That's right, and the first time that they killed almost I think 14 prisoners who were in the prison, and the people had come out on the streets, and they lined up and they killed those 15 people because they want to practice Islam the way they wanted to practice.
Help me out here. That was before 1857. There was a great mutiny in 1857 against the British.
That was not in Kashmir. That was a part of Punjab.
Punjab, and those divisions were very much more meaningful in the 19th century than the united India that we tend to think of as the country now. And it's not important because those regional identities are very important in terms of the subcontinent.
That's true.
And that has been historically so. Kashmir has a unique language.
Kashmir has got, of course, unique language, unique culture.
Culture for sure.
Culture for
Silk
sure.
Road, it goes back to a trade route, doesn't
Yes,
it? Back into ancient times over to Cathay and everything. Yeah.
It has been a state by itself
Yeah.
ever since.
Uh-huh.
But first time it was bought by Hindu Raja, and then of course ever since if we come to 1947,
Yes.
the partition time, at that time we had actually the whole India was almost 600 princely states.
Oh, 600 Princeton. How many languages were there?
Well, I tell you that as
100.
many states, as many languages almost. They
yeah.
had.
Yeah.
I would not exactly know, but you can say in hundreds.
Yeah, right.
Okay, different languages but predominantly there were two big religions. There were Muslims and Hindus.
Hindus, yeah.
And India was divided on the pretext of religion because there was a clash between religions in practicing their social life also. For example, I give you an example that Muslims, they slaughter cow and they eat it. It's like beef.
Yeah.
But as far as Hindus were concerned, it was their sacred mother or God.
That's a pretty serious
So
thing.
it was a very pretty serious thing. Every time they would like to do it, they will have a clash. They will have killing. So there was. I'm just giving you example,
Yeah,
one
I know.
example, and then of course there was a lot of other cultural differences that we
Sure,
had.
yeah.
Religious, of course, and because Muslims' culture is very much influenced by their own religion, so therefore this difference was very obvious, and every now and then there used to be a problem.
And there have been variations in who held quote-unquote power. You had the Mughals there. There were great areas of civilization that were built, because that's a great area of culture and civilization, but there were conflicts between them, and there still
Well,
are.
Mughals, in fact, they came from Turkey and Afghanistan, from Persia, from that area, and they remained in power for almost 300 years.
Was they that did the Taj Mahal?
Yes.
Was there somebody named Barbar?
Barbar, yes.
Now, Barbar was Mughal?
Mughal, this was dynasty, Mughal dynasty, in fact.
And that's Mughal Islamic dynasty.
Islamic dynasty.
That had power and so forth, and had control over a lot of the subcontinent itself?
It was the whole subcontinent. As a matter of fact, this was, it was including Afghanistan, part of Iran, whole India, Bangladesh.
Afghanistan was known as Bactria, I think.
Yes.
Back in the ancient days of Alexander.
That's right.
And it's also been the part of the, like Mr. what's his name, Brzezinski says, the chessboard, and the idea of the northwest frontier province, and the whole basis of 19th century British geopolitical thinking between sea power and land power, that was called the Heartland. Which
yes.
was apart from influenced by sea power.
Yes.
And there was a big game played about strategic empires clashing one with the other, and that's always been a site of great concern.
Yes.
And many of the day, the British had to rue the day that they tried to assert control up in that northwest
Well,
province.
they tried, they miserably failed.
We may be visiting that again in case of that part of the world.
Yes.
At this moment, as we try to exert empire upon that part of the world, do you think? That may be a side issue, but not so much, but it's part of the
Well, now it is
history.
concerned. You see, now everything is interlinked with Kashmir ever since after 9/11.
Yeah.
Afghanistan and Kashmir and even
Yeah.
Palestine and Iraq and Lebanon,
Mhm.
all these things are being interrelated. It's a big conspiracy, as a matter of fact, against all those people who are freedom-loving people, and they're trying to relate all those movements into a terrorism movement.
Right. Well, the Western world is trying to equate or conflate, I guess they would say, in a large scale. It seems to me we can get to it. We want to get away from Kashmir. We want to stick with Kashmir. But the Western world, many elements within it are trying to conflate terrorism with Islam.
That's right.
Islamo-fascist, they're calling
Yes,
it now.
yes.
And that's a big issue.
They started with fundamentalism,
Yeah, right.
then extremism, now it is terrorism.
Yeah,
And they're relating it with Islam, of
and
course.
we're coming up to a congressional election now, and our administration, terrorists, and they're trying to conflate that with Islam. So
Yes.
And Mr. Huntington talking about the clash of civilizations. But back to Kashmir. At the end, when the British, it was a huge migration of people. Muslims went to Pakistan, Hindus in the divided India and Pakistan. You still got a huge 150 to 200 million Muslims in India proper, I think now, and a huge, very, very disrupting movement of population. And everything was settled geographically in terms of there were 3 provinces that didn't apply. But in Kashmir, the settlement that was to be done by the agreement
Well, it was not.
was never been lived up to in the eyes of yourself and your comrades that are fighting in terms of Kashmir liberation from the occupation, as you see it, and the disregard for UN mandates of how that settlement
That was
to be
something
done.
later. You see, before that, when the partition formula was made, the formula was that areas which are predominantly Muslim areas, majority Muslim areas, they'll be declared as Pakistan, and of course, which are predominantly Hindus, they'll be India. This was the
By
basic
population, percentage of population.
Percentage of population.
Of the overall population.
overall population. Let's say there is a state, which, as I said, there were 6 princely states.
Yeah.
Punjab was one state, Balochistan was one state, Indus was one state, Kashmir was another state.
Yeah.
So Kashmir was almost 95% Muslims. And
that should by all rights be part of Pakistan, which was the Muslim part of the division. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the king of Kashmir,
The
or
Raja,
the Raja, was
who
Hindu.
had bought it for $23.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was Hindu, and Hindu Raja, I mean, again, that's a long discussion. I won't go into that. He, falsely or cheatingly, he had an access to India, but it's a personal access. Whereas
wasn't Nehru from Kashmir?
I'm sorry,
Nehru?
Yes,
he was Kashmir?
They also come from Kashmir. Pandit.
Do I have the Pandit is associated with Kashmir or no?
Yeah, we have a certain area of Kashmir, Jammu area, one of the state, where we have a lot of Pandits.
And a pundit is now, in the American language, is somebody who's an expert in something. They say the political pundits. They use that, or is it the same term, or does it come from that?
No. Pandit,
no, I'm sorry.
But Pandit is a very influential race in Hindu. They're business people. They do business, basically.
And you sure that's not related to our use of the term pundit?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, sorry.
But Pandits are leaders.
Yeah.
So maybe from that, gurus, leaders.
Yeah.
So maybe from that point we might be relating to this. Otherwise, there is no direct connection.
Anyway, there was that thing, and there was supposed to be that there would be, how is that going to be decided as they came to the UN? 48 or so, 47, 48 was
47.
The
this was
same time they were dealing with Palestine. The UN.
It's all happened. You see, British left from India and Palestine. So all these problems were created at one time.
It might be good to keep that in mind because there's a link between them because you have Islamic things and everything. We don't want to get to that. But spell it out. It was supposed to be that if there would be a plebiscite. Is that not what the UN resolution?
No. It was first of all, it was supposed to be divided as Kashmir were part of Pakistan.
Okay.
But this happened, and Kashmir, because Kashmir is a very strategically very important place.
Yeah.
Not only because there was 95% Muslims and they were supposed to join Pakistan. This is not the only reason. The reason is that for Pakistan, we call it a jugular vein of Pakistan because all the water that we live on in Pakistan, it comes from Kashmir.
It does. The Indus rises there, I think?
All the rivers.
Yeah. All the rivers
come from
rise
Kashmir.
in Kashmir?
Yes.
I'll be darned.
So let's say if you can manage to cut all those waters, the Pakistan is going to become a barren state anyway. So
I talked to a fellow who did a program that aired yesterday from the day you and I are talking now on the 4th. That was with a fellow who was a friend of Dalai Lama. He said the Brahmaputra and the Indus rise in Tibet.
That's right.
It does. So it goes from Tibet through Kashmir. I see. Yeah, and water is important.
Water is very important.
Right.
And therefore it was very important for Pakistan, and that's why Pakistan started demanding that, and then we had a war in 1948, first war.
There was an out war.
Okay. No, this is what
heavy loss of life in that war?
Yes, heavy loss, and that was the time that Pakistan forces liberated a part of Kashmir, which is known as Azad Kashmir.
And the name was Sardar Qayyum Khan?
Sardar Qayyum Khan
he was like the hero of that.
Well, we call him Mujahid-e-Awwal. That means the first soldier who fired. Mujahid-e-Awwal. Awwal means the first soldier who fought for liberation of Azad Kashmir.
And will you hear the term then again, Mujahideen, which is a freedom fighter?
Yes.
Okay, that's the term that is right. Okay, right, okay.
Though this term has been kind of discredited nowadays. Yeah, but actually Mujahid, all it means is a person who fights for his freedom.
That is universally allowed by all religions. You can state for your and to fight against occupation of your culture is a perfectly legitimate thing for people all over the world.
Exactly.
And there aren't, I don't know how many places there are where there's these real occupation issues are really so firmly important.
Well, I think there are only places which are left are all unfortunately Muslim areas where it is occupied.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Bosnia and Kosovo and Chechnya and Palestine and of course
Kashmir.
My place, Kashmir.
Yeah. You got some. You might have some or Iroquois American Indians, or I think they got things right down in Bolivia now where some of the indigenous people that were in the Americas are beginning to say, why do we have to be occupied? Because we've occupied the North American continent, if you look at it from the standpoint of the indigenous people.
Right.
In South America, there was terrible indignities then. So maybe something like that will come. Morales is now in control. He's at Aymara in Bolivia, so they're beginning to stir some of the people saying occupation by colonial power is something that is very much in the minds of much of the world, is something to be against the idea that some people can occupy other people against their will. That's an important principle operative in a lot of the conflict that's confronting the world. Citizenry now, it should be understood.
But the point is, unfortunately, the interpretation of freedom is being not change in papers, but it is change in practicalities. And
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's when you come up against realpolitik, and people say the British. I think they said that to you in 1857. They said, "We got the Gatling gun.
Yeah.
You don't want to let them get the Gatling gun, and we will go and control you." And we did that for 500 years. Europeans were colonizing the world, but the Raj, the British leaving the Raj with the boot of colonialism as seen from the people that occupied. So that's a major issue that's still there, and I think it's operative in the minds of a lot, even if we look at places like Iraq or in some case Palestine. I think the Palestinians see themselves occupied by Ashkenazi European people in that traditional vein, and we should see things the way those people do if we want to try and understand it better. Don't want to get away from Kashmir, but these things do interrelate. And so the thing with the Kashmir is, wasn't there something with the UN saying that when this debate, how is Pakistan going to go, it should be up to the people of Pakistan to have a...
No, that is where I'm coming in. 1948, when we had a war, India came into United Nations, and they said, listen, we want to stop the war. And of course, a lot of meetings and a lot of sessions of Security Council and all that happened, and finally there was a draft made, okay, stop the war. And this is how we're going to resolve Kashmir. We're going to have a plebiscite there.
I see, right.
Okay, this was a resolution passed in 1948 by UN. And America and Britain and a lot of other countries, 5, 6 countries, they were signatory of this resolution passed. Now, ever since that, you know, India at that time was afraid that they might lose the whole Kashmir because
that's a question. India is a constant. You had all these different cultures, and they are going to be afraid. Well, maybe I should let you continue.
No, my question is when
why India is so averse to the idea.
No, at that time Pakistani forces had already liberated half of Kashmir, almost half, little less than half, yes. But at that time, India was not...
Had there been a ceasefire, or not a ceasefire line, but a line where that
line of control.
That had been armies fighting. Was that guerrilla, or was there armies? Were there armies lined up like...
At that time?
Yeah.
No, Faris time there was all civilians. There was no army. Pakistan didn't have any army at that time.
Okay, well, how did they keep control of Azad then? They must have had before. No, in 1904, before... You know, they got Sardar Qayyum Khan, and they had forces that took the north.
Well, this was
they did it by marching, and with the support of the people there.
With the support of
because they feel that
people of Kashmir.
And if they had been able to continue that, the people in Srinagar who were Muslim probably would have joined in with that as well, except they were occupied by military forces by India.
Right.
So they were occupying then.
That's right.
Okay, against the will of the mass of the people.
That's right.
Okay.
And India at that time thought that the best thing is at this time that we stop the war and we just start negotiating. So negotiating was done with the purpose of stopping the action that it has already taken place.
Right. So the
and delay it, and then let's talk, you know. And the talking has been done from last 58 years we are talking.
Well, wait a minute, yeah, but they got to some terms that made that possible, and was it not the idea that there should be the people of Kashmir should have a plebiscite to decide how they wanted to go?
That was the spirit of the plebiscite, that people of Kashmir would decide.
And it was a UN resolution.
It was a UN resolution.
And there have been many resolutions. And they've all been ignored. India will not allow a plebiscite.
No, India doesn't
want
a
plebiscite. And if they did, there's overwhelmingly Muslims still. They would vote against the interests of India maintaining this
Obviously, if India knows that they can vote in the interest of India, they will have a plebiscite right away. They don't want to have a plebiscite because they're sure that Kashmir is going to vote against India. And now India is saying that, you know, it is their internal matter.
They're saying it's an internal matter. So they're saying that they have annexed. They said they've annexed that area as part of India. It's an intrinsic part of India.
Yes.
And their thing, well, some of the people say that if they let that go, then there will be separatist movements in Assam or in other parts or in the south. No, but that's not your issue. But from India's perspective, they've got to maintain the union. It would be like letting California go or something like that in terms of that. That would be the beginning of a domino thing where the union would fall apart. And you got all these different ethnic entities, and they got to hold them together by force.
Well, that shows and confirms how loose and how discomforting control they have on other states also. You see
other parts of the Indian Union.
Otherwise, why would a country be disassociating from India? It is only disassociating because they don't feel a part of India.
Yeah.
And now India doesn't want to let Kashmir go because they're scared of Assam leaving them or other states.
But is that not part of their consciousness? Yeah,
you're right.
it is,
Yeah,
because-
but that confirms what my doubts are and what my our queries are.
Right.
That means India is a loose confederation
Yeah.
on basis of
Well, it was
occupation. It's like
wasn't
an
it?
occupation.
It was brought together by the Raj, by
Yes,
India. It was
yes.
brought and made by the East Indian trading and the colonialization, that kind of thing. And you have all
India
these
never used to be
differences.
together. India has never, in the history of India, 500-600 years history go back, they have never been together. They have been
Okay.
states.
You have tremendous regional differences, even onto what would be like national in some. I mean, like Bangalore is very, very different than Delhi, and Punjab.
Different language.
Punjab is very different from Calcutta, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. You have these great differences, and people are worried about, they want to have a political entity that has unity, like Abraham Lincoln held together our union when there were people wanting to go separate. Is there anything like that, except we had a common language, a common thing more than in India? It's a difficult
Yeah, but there is
situation
no
of how you can-
commonality. There are about 100 languages they have, different cultures, different religions, different businesses, different color, different races. So
And they have this caste system still?
Yes.
They still have a caste system. Have you
Yes.
been, I don't understand that thing where they have some people that are like untouchables.
Yes, we still
and
have.
that. And is that a difference between the Muslim view of human organization?
this is one of the biggest difference, because in Muslims, nobody is untouchable. Everybody is a human being. You cannot discriminate a person just because of his caste.
How do they justify that? I don't understand how. I mean, that's like a caste system. We have caste depending on economics. We have some people very strong. We have that, and then that's looked down upon. We still have upper class, but the caste system is always built into the nature of the universe. How do they, intellectuals, intellectuals, how do they justify such a system in terms of philosophy or something?
But they don't justify it now. I'm not saying
They
they're
do
trying-
not. So it's
they do
not something
justify.
that still holds.
No,
Everybody's
but culturally, it in the remote areas it still holds.
Okay.
But as a state, as a policy, they cannot.
Yeah, I'm saying it's so against the
Yes.
zeitgeist, as
Yeah,
it
but
were.
still, I learned like few weeks back, there was in a very remote area of India, there was a sati. You know what sati is?
That's
Sati-
where they kill the wife of
Yes,
the boy,
yes,
man
yes.
who dies, or they put
Yes,
her
young
on the
girl,
fire,
her husband died, and she had to kind of
burn herself.
burn herself into the same fire that her husband was being burned.
That seems absolutely absurd.
This used to be very common I would
Yeah.
say about 30, 40 years back.
And they have these dowry marriages. They
Yeah.
have a lot of things that are very upsetting.
It's a very unjust system they
Well,
had
the
in
world is unjust, and everywhere we have unjust. You have some people who are rich, some people aren't. It's all like
Right,
that,
right.
but it seems to be particularly enshrined within even their philosophical system or something. So that's the thing. But we're getting too far afield from Kashmir or from that. So Kashmir, and they had a number of resolutions saying, have plebiscite. That's
Right.
what was agreed to. That was
Right.
the term. And they've never been able to allow that for whatever reasons they have for doing that. And they've asserted,
Never
I
been
understand you've got something you've had. I remember when we talked to you in the past, you had 600,000 troops. I heard some of the people at a thing I saw yesterday with some packet that they may have something close on to 1 million, 1/6 of their armed forces keeping the peace with violence and so forth in Kashmir. And is that correct? Could you put the situation in more or less contemporary
to every
terms?
5 people there is a soldier.
For every 5 people, there's a soldier.
in Kashmir.
That's absurd.
Okay, and I mean, by just knowing that they have so much of army deployed in Kashmir, it shows that they are finding difficulties to have control over this place.
Right.
And this should be enough reason for them to testify that they have no links between this piece of land, no connection that they can claim that they are part of India. I mean, to be a part of certain state,
Yeah.
you have to have something in common. You have to have love for each other. You have to have some demand for each other. But apparently, Kashmir has got no connection with India.
They're not people moving from further south in India there and just taking over land like carpetbaggers and taking over and establishing themselves and then building a family. And is the Hindu population, Indian population growing as they occupy the land?
Well, they're
like we
trying.
did against the Iroquois.
Yes, they're trying, but it's not easy for them. I tell you, reason being that it's so predominantly Muslims that, I mean, even if they're doing it for last, I would say they have increased by maybe 1%.
1% since the beginning?
Since
Only?
Only.
In population relative to Muslims?
Yeah, because it's not easy. You see, like, for them, they're trying, like they're trying
probably
to
wouldn't be-
rehabilitate pundits back. Initially, just to discredit the Kashmir movement, they had the pundits moved from Kashmir and had a claim, oh look, Muslims have sent pundits out of Kashmir. Now they're trying to rehabilitate. In the process, they are bringing a lot of people from other states and settling them in Kashmir. But Kashmir is a unique place. It's not easy and comfortable for a person from the plain area to go and settle down in Kashmir.
Well, it's mountainous? Or
It's mountainous.
It's lovely in the
It's
summer.
a beautiful place.
Yeah,
It's
is it?
mountainous. And
There's a lake there, Dal Lake?
well, it's not one lake. It's full of lakes.
Oh, really?
It's lakes, mountains, and gardens. They're
Almonds
beautiful.
and pomegranates and everything,
Yeah.
apricots.
Right, exactly.
It's paradise.
It's paradise.
In many people's mind, yeah.
It's
right.
paradise.
Uh-huh.
They're
But
trying
wouldn't they have people who would move in and take the land and just assert themselves if they got control? But would there would be objection by the people?
Well,
But
that's
we
why
took
you see this killing, because when they do it, there is objection by people. There are riots.
Well, we took the land of the Apaches. We went in Arizona. We took it, and there weren't enough of them to. Some of them, Crazy Horse, put up a fight. A few people put up a fight, but it was overwhelming numbers of Europeans who took over, and we took over.
Yeah, but
and we had
that
but there's not that number. You got an awful lot of people.
yeah, but
in
still,
India.
even that you cannot justify.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We did it with an army,
Yeah.
with guns and
Yes.
Gatling guns and force, realpolitik, but they haven't got enough power to be able to assert that to where they could flood it with Indians.
Yeah, but
and
it
just
is
take
it is
over
different
and
from
put
Kashmiris.
you in-
Kashmiris have power. Kashmiris have numbers.
Okay.
They're all Kashmiris. They want no connection, nothing to do with India. That's why you see all these people being killed every other day.
You've had 100,000 people by records that have been killed
yes.
in that incursion.
That was
These
that was
would
the
be
figure of
Muslims?
last year.
These
Yes.
are the Muslims?
Muslims. Yes.
Overwhelming.
Overwhelmingly.
Okay.
Yes.
100,000.
100,000 have been killed, and I would say about 20,000 have been displaced.
Uh-huh.
And the children in thousands, I have no count, but thousands in children, they are orphans or they are disabled, they don't have limbs. And thousands and thousands of women have been raped in front of their children.
That's a way to dehumanize people that they're trying to gain control over.
Dehumanize and discourage them to asking for they were asking for. Just to stop them with force to tell them to keep
That's
shut.
an ultimate disgrace or something, or a dehumanizing tactic on the part of oppressive people who have done that.
Right. We have so many cases
Yeah.
on record, on Indian Army's record, how many soldiers have raped young girls in front of their... And they
Now,
usually-
that's just not runaway men that have a lot of testosterone or something like that. That's done as a policy?
As a,
Do you think? Or
Well,
is that too far? Or,
well,
yeah.
I would say it might not be a policy, but when you let that officer or
Yeah.
that soldier
do such.
do such thing and then let him be there
Yeah.
even after that, knowing
no
that he's done
answer,
it.
no
So
accept-
I would say it's a policy.
Yeah.
I would say it's a policy that they come and they round up people under the pretext of house search, and during that process, they take the girls out, they touch their bodies, they intimidate their husband and their kid
Yeah,
and
to
everything,
disgrace. Yeah,
disgrace,
yeah.
and let them down. And the people are, you see, they're poor people.
Yeah.
And they have no arms. They get scared,
Right.
and they try not to even say anything.
Yeah, and you don't have arms, and so and then the idea of any resistance or something, I suppose, would be from the Indian perspective. It has 1 million soldiers. So many. Is it close to 1 million soldiers in the Vale?
Almost.
Almost a million.
Almost a million. Little less than a million, but almost a million. Almost
One out
800.
of every 5 citizens, there's a soldier for. That's
Yes.
absurd.
Yes.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
In the face of it, I mean, and everything, they would call anyone who does any resisting a terrorist.
They will call him a terrorist and they'll kill him.
They would kill him.
Kill him. Or they will take him away and
Never
then
be heard of
and
again.
never heard where he's gone.
Uh-huh.
And if his or her parents, they claim they want to go and ask, they get into such a treatment that they just want to keep quiet and just forget about it. You see, if you see in Kashmir, there have been, I think, about 5,000 graveyards full of people. And if you see, all people that have been killed in the last 18 years. Now, I'm not going beyond that. I'm going after 1989,
Right.
that this recent movement was started, and after that, it's all graveyards. It's kids who were born 1989, now they're young people.
Yeah, right.
They're 18 years old now.
And you've had, in a certain sense, in a certain sense, among the people of Kashmir, there's been a certain kind of intifada.
Yes.
Comparable to what the Palestinians.
Resistance movement.
And so there is a camaraderie in a sense, because it is Islam, between the two, Palestine and Kashmir.
Well, the point is the state...
It is a long distance of separation geographically, but you're in the middle of the Ummah.
Right.
So people in Indonesia are going to perhaps relate to the suffering of Muslims, or suffering because they're Muslims in Kashmir, the same way they will be able to relate to the suffering of Palestinians because they're Muslims.
True.
Right?
That's true.
Okay. And that is, do you sense that? Do you get support?
Well, we're getting only moral support, I would say. We definitely expect much more than that, but definitely getting moral support from all the ummah in the world. But it's not only a Muslim issue, it's a human issue. I would like to portray it as a human issue. Yeah. I mean, human beings are being killed and disgraced, and humanity is being disgraced. Okay, and I think this is the time when it happens to East Timor.
Yeah,
it takes few months, and they're liberated. They get
it took a little longer than that.
No, what I'm saying in the final stage, I'm talking about.
Yeah, right. Or when Cambodia with Pol Pot.
When we heard, when it came into limelight, a lot of people didn't even know that, there is a problem in Istanbul, and it is resolved also.
Yeah, right. Million. I think a million died. I think a million died.
Yes.
It was awful.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. You had that kind of thing. But what I'm getting at in a certain sense is that the fact that we started off talking about how the Western powers are going to say, even down to Samuel Huntington and whatnot, they're saying that the problem in the world is that we've got this, let's just put it forth, a lot of people see, we've got this world and we pretty much control the whole world, although there's beginning to be rumblings in Venezuela and in Bolivia and everything, but we got this whole world, we pretty much got it in control. The Chinese seem to be signing on to our capitalist system, our model, our sort of thing. It's like a neo-imperialist or a thing like that. But we got this group in the middle of the Eurasian mass called Muslims, from Mauritania to Indonesia, and they just don't seem to want to fall into line. Some of them do. They become Vichy to our power. We're a superpower, and that they're doing it. So they're now setting up a war thing, and we just went and got ourselves all involved. The United States got involved as a superpower in Iraq.
Right.
And that's come a cropper.
Right.
That's come a cropper. They thought that they were going to just all fall in line and fall in behind our full spectrum dominance of the whole world. That is the avowed aim of our current administration. All we want is full spectrum dominance of the whole planet, including space, and then things will settle in, much like the British used to feel at colonialism, and in a world where people largely are very averse to the boot of colonial control by some people who are seeing themselves as Ubermenschen over lesser people, that kind of thing. That's a dynamic that's at work, and that's beginning to come into focus in terms of reflecting upon Kashmir and perhaps the broader developments with the Islamic world. It might be worth trying to relate those two, particularly in view of just what just went on in Lebanon, and also what's going on now in terms of Iran and the Western relationship to Iran and the mess in Iraq.
Well, I think what could work 400 or 500 years back, I don't think that can work now, even though there are powers which are trying that. And we have seen in Iraq, we have seen in Lebanon, we've seen in Afghanistan. It's not working. All it's happening is killing and killing and killing, and human beings are being killed. It doesn't matter whether they're Christians or Muslims or Americans, even soldiers dying in Afghanistan or in Iraq, if they're from America, if they're Christian, they're still human beings. I don't think it should be a sign of pride for any Muslim or for any other countries to feel, even though that the guy doesn't belong from this. But my point is, this whole exercise, I personally think, is not going to be a cause of achievement for anybody, for that matter. I mean, we have seen that America is already trying from different channels negotiating with Taliban.
With Taliban, which is emerging in Afghanistan again.
We see that, yeah.
They're thinking they're going to have
so if we have to do that, why the hell we had to go through all this exercise of spending money, ammunition, killing people, displacing people, having a conflict among civilizations and the religions, and then you know, this was all a useless exercise. And so quickly, in what, in 4 years, we have learned a lesson, or we don't say that, but we think there is a lesson behind it. That's why things are being negotiated with Taliban.
Well, what do you mean? If you could spell that out a little bit, when you say things are
Well,
being
I think
you're very, because you got things they're emerging in Afghanistan, you got Waziristan and all this kind of stuff, things going on in Pakistan. I don't know what the realities are in Pakistan itself. There's a lot of discontent with the imperial model. A lot of people in Pakistan do not look favorably upon the United States of America,
Right.
even though Musharraf is there cooperating at a certain level. Maybe you could share some of the realities as you see it.
In terms of
helping us understand better what the realities are from
Okay.
people who understand what the realities are there.
In terms of Afghanistan, and I'm sure you must have read it, the coalition forces, they have only control in 10 miles area.
A couple of
15,
blocks of
area.
Kabul.
And they say they have
Kabul.
Kabul. And they're kind of...
It's a joke. It's like
a joke, all right? They cannot go to any direction where they are 10 miles.
Right.
Because if they go, they know that they'll be in enemy territory from their point of view.
Yeah.
So my point is, so that means this was all a useless exercise.
Karzai and all that. Right?
It's all.
Yeah. It's
Karzai is a prisoner of his own palace.
Do they see it as like a Vichy thing where the Nazis set up a thing and then there's some people are going to try and be with them and everything like that? And then you could extend that out further to some of the so-called moderate states that seem to be able to have maybe a position of power within some of the Gulf states and so forth. They will get along with the United States, fit into the model and everything because they're in a position of power. They're moderate.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do, is to get people who will go along with the overlordship of the United States of America as a superpower. And there are some people, and that more or less there are a lot of people who do. Every country in the world has just a few people who do very, very well and run things. And most of the people, we don't have a system that's democracy for the whole of the people most anywhere in the world, including even the United States of America, which is supposed to be so democratic.
Well, I think it's become a joke, democracy, because in Pakistan, we had a coup which was very overwhelmingly disapproved by America.
October 12th, 1999?
Yeah, October 99, and it was disapproved by America itself.
October 12th, yes.
Yes.
This program was aired on October 13th. October 12th was the coup. Columbus Day, my big day.
Yes.
My big day in my life. I think October 12th is like the beginning of the year myself. For reasons of mine I don't want to go into, but that's October
right.
12th.
And at that time, Clinton, President Clinton, when he went to India and on his way back in Pakistan, he refused to shake hands with General Musharraf because he was a soldier.
Yeah.
He was an army man, and it was not, from all definitions of democracy, he was not welcome.
Right.
And but now we need him.
There had been an elected Sharif who
Yes,
had been elected democratically.
He was thrown out. He was put in exile.
Well, you've had a lot of experience with that in countries around the world and so forth.
Right.
Yeah, okay, go on.
And ever since now, as far as the President of America is concerned, Bush, he's the best friend of Bush is General Musharraf, in reference to the...
By being the best friend of Mr. Bush, it's going to put you in some disassociation with a good deal of the Pakistani population writ large.
That's what is happening.
How popular do you think Musharraf, given as close as he is associated with Bush? I don't want to put you on the spot. What percentage of the population do you think are wholeheartedly behind the president, Mr. Musharraf, among the Pakistani population? If you don't want to answer, I understand it.
No, I can answer because it's not a secret. It's known.
But it's an important question.
Yeah, yeah.
And the stability of that area, and much less up into Waziristan and Baluchistan and Afghanistan.
Well, Musharraf is a soldier and general, and he doesn't have no roots in the people. So I think even this question is not... I don't know how to answer this question.
He has no roots or no support?
No support.
10% or something maybe? Or
well, there must be people who will be supporting him. I'm not saying he doesn't have no support, but I'm saying is to be leading a country, you have to have at least more than 50% support.
Well, you ought to do, I think, unless you got deep trouble and you have to put 1 million troops up there to hold care. Yeah, but,
well, that's what it is.
But he still commands troops, and he's still gotten billions and billions of dollars from the United States in order to let certain things go on up in Afghanistan. And all. You understand? He's been bribed. It seems in the minds of a lot of people.
I don't want to say that, but you said it, so I would say, yes, you're right. He's been bribed.
And so much of the leaders of the world been bribed in order to sort of assuage
help fulfill agenda of the West and America.
The superpower, the United States and everything like that.
That's true.
And also their allies, and maybe if I could, but he's not, in your view, he's not very popular in terms of that. Is there a chance of there being I don't want to say coup, but an alteration in the political system
you know, we had
Pakistan?
3 death attempts on him already.
Yeah, I know. I thought there were more than that.
Well, on Limelight that we see, there'll be many which we don't know. I mean, they don't even bring it to the limelight. And not that I'm for any kind of death attempt. It's not. But the point is, people when you put people against the wall.
Yeah.
What do you expect from them?
And you got the leaders of the world putting the people, in many people's minds, you got a system that serves maybe 20% in each of the countries or in the whole, and you're going to put people against the wall, and the system cannot serve the interests of the people, you're likely to get a lot of blowback, as they call it.
Yeah.
Not from the leaders necessarily, who are in on the game in terms of a corrupt system, but the people themselves. That may be actually stirring to where the winds of real, honest-to-God, participatory democracy and a system that economic justice and so forth may actually be occurring, but it's hard to see out of the nightmare scenario of special interests ruling over the masses of the people writ large on the planet, including every political system that exists, from Russia to China, the United States, and to the whole wide world. And there may be something new coming, do you think, or do you sense?
Well,
I like to sense it, but I don't know if I'm just being
I would
idealistic.
like to confine myself from what you asked me from Pakistan, India,
yeah, okay, yeah.
and talking about that, because I think I have an opportunity here where I can relate. You see, when I look at General Musharraf, I want to still look at him, what he's doing for Kashmir.
Of course, okay, yeah.
And what he's doing
for people of Pakistan. And that's a big issue in Pakistan against vis-a-vis India. That's the big issue in terms of conscience of the people there. No, we should understand that.
That's
better.
Right.
Okay.
And you see, even for Kashmir, and this president, I mean, self-proclaimed president of Pakistan.
It was a coup. Yeah.
It's a coup. And, I mean, he one day decided he's the president, so he became president. He and Indian government, they both went into a agreement, and they both at one time decided, okay, we'll have negotiations, we'll talk about Kashmir, we'll try to resolve this. And we now know it, and we knew at that time also, this is all crap, it's not happening.
Really?
And that was endorsed by America, because at that time America wanted India as well as Pakistan to just put this thing on the side, and let's deal with Afghanistan. So this fell.
This is after 9/11 you're talking?
Exactly.
Or,
yes,
okay.
After 9/11.
Right. They wanted to bomb the bejesus out of Afghanistan and did.
That's right.
At that time, if the Taliban, and the Taliban's rising again.
Yes. And
they're within gunshot of Kabul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every other day.
Yeah.
Every other day.
And in Waristan and all those stans over there between Pakistan. That's an area where there is Mr. bin Laden and so forth, they think is there in that area. And he's protected mightily by the people and the sentiment of the people there, like Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest.
We have many versions. Some people say that he's already dead. Some they say he's
but if he isn't, he's widely, I think Osama's a very popular name in naming children these days.
Well, it's not Osama who is popular, but it's not the love for Osama, it is the hate for the West.
All right, right. But my enemy's enemy is my
That's
you know,
true.
that kind of thing, yeah.
Nobody knows who Osama is. Actually, Osama, again...
Maybe he's like Emmanuel Goldstein in 1984.
People only see Osama as as a force which is fighting the West.
Yeah, right.
But
much of the world wants to fight the West, I think.
Yes.
At least, maybe at different levels, maybe not directly and so forth. And the thing that interested me is that they had this thing recently where Israel, which has been always seen as a indisputably powerful, overwhelmingly invincible power in the Middle East, has been challenged by this event. And Nasrallah was lobbing rockets into Haifa, 300 of them on the last day, and I saw I don't understand, the Emir of Qatar, who was there, and they thought he was going to come on television and say, well, yes, we're going to have to disarm Hezbollah, and we're going to have to do that because it's a threat or something. And he came out and he sang the praises of Hezbollah, that they are rising up. The Arab nation or the Islamic nation is rising up to say, why do we have to accept? Let's just put it in stark terms. You got a couple million Jews from Europe that are there, are challenging 1.4 million Muslims, and they're going to be able to put real pressure on it with support from Iran, which is doing that, so that real support is going to come. And he's saying it's given new impetus to an Islamic questioning of the situation of superpower status of Israel and that. an undying ally of the United States, and that might be putting real pressure on the idea that the West is invincibly strong,
Yes.
and that they can perhaps be challenged in the numbers that the Islamic world can assert, and that is changing the geostrategic nature of things as we go now, that there may be a rising, not just militarily, but in all sense. And do you think there's any of that? Do you sense any of it? And could that come to the support of the Kashmiri people, whose condition has been widely ignored by all of the world in a convenience of geopolitical thinking that perhaps is being changed by the geostrategic realities on the ground?
Well, it definitely could affect, because first of all, you use a concept of ummah.
Mm-hmm.
So concept of ummah is like whenever there is a problem in any Muslim countries, the brother Muslims, they feel affected. And generally, if they feel affected, emotionally they feel affected. Now, whatever happens in Lebanon, and not only that, you see for example, I'm looking for a freedom to my country.
Of Kashmir.
Kashmir.
Right.
So I'll be concerned about anywhere where there's a genuine freedom going on, and there is genuine people who want a freedom of,
Right.
living, or whatever you may call it.
Well, that could be tied into the that could be part of a freedom, it sounds idealistic, of the people of the world against an outdated zeitgeist system of organization that's being led. It's like an ancient regime that's out of date, that's trying to run things in a way that's out of date. Maybe.
Right.
You know what
because
I'm saying?
if they don't
Instead of them being terrorists, they may be really, in a real sense, for the world population, freedom fighters. That are much of the mujahideen are of that nature.
I would even call it, the situation is not even a freedom fighter now. I would say the people are fighting for their life.
Oh, right.
Freedom is something, is a luxury now, honestly. I don't think even that is available anywhere. It's like, I want to live, so let me live, please.
Right, and my people,
And my people. For example, if what Israel did to Lebanon, if we don't denounce this,
they should be.
We can have the same problem in India. They can attack on Kashmir. They say, get the hell out of here.
Oh, sure.
So something has to be stopped.
Preemptive war. Remember, it was Israel that attacked an atomic reactor in Iraq on their own. Just did it. Said, we're going to do it. We got the power. We're going to do it. America's done it with alarming regularity, and they can. But it may be that it's changing. I think that Nasrallah won.
Yes.
They won. And
it is universally
and sort of just kowtowing and say, well, what might you let us have possibly? If we're really good, what would you let us do? They may be able to challenge that assumption on the part of the Western powers. So what I'm saying may be blowing in the wind, as we say now, and it might have ramifications in terms of real support for the situation of the Mujahideen or others in Kashmir, where you're particularly concerned, do you think? Maybe good things are happening after long not paying attention to that very important strategic part of the world.
Well, it definitely could affect, but the point is, Harold,
it's still suffering, and they suffered terribly in that earthquake. I couldn't believe
every day earthquake happened, but that, of course, was not. That is a natural catastrophe, and we accept anyway. But you see, other than that, every day you pick up the phone, and I know people are too busy in Afghanistan and Iraq. But I watch what is happening in Kashmir, and every day we hear 5, 6, 10 casualties.
Really?
The people dying, kids dying, school kids dying, and nobody even seems to bother. Because anything less than 10 is not even noticeable.
Right.
And the count is adding up.
Yeah, and there's so much attention put on the Palestinian thing in the American press.
Right.
Partly because there's such a strong Jewish connection to Palestine, whereas I don't know in the balance and why there's so much attention put upon Palestine and not Kashmir.
You said it right.
What?
Number one, of course, Jewish connection.
Well, that makes sense. That's because particularly in New York Times, they got people living in New York. Many Jews are living in New York, so
and they're the party. They're the parties, and they would like everything. But in Kashmir, there is nothing apparently I say, there's nothing so far for the interest of United States and West, because there's no oil. If there was oil in Kashmir,
well, there's not oil in Palestine. There's oil in the region.
But strategically, Palestine, because of Palestine, if the area is disrupted, and Iran, I'm sorry, Israel, it's not a question of
if
oil.
Israel's put under real pressure, if they're put under real pressure, that they've never had to do because they've been a superpower. They got undying amounts of money. We could have an effect on that, but I don't know on the other part. But I know that they haven't been paying attention to the situation up in Kashmir the way it should be, and it's a very disquieting kind of thing.
You see, I think after 9/11, you mentioned 9/11. I would like to share this with you.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
That after 9/11, of course, we had a lot of losses of different nature in the world. The whole world is changed. But as Kashmir is concerned, unfortunately, India took the maximum benefit out of 9/11 by trying, and successfully trying maybe, with the help of West, relate Kashmir movement to a terrorism movement.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think that is the worst thing that we have lost.
They called George III called George Washington a terrorist. They called Nelson Mandela a terrorist.
Yes.
You know, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And the point is, the name, even though that so far, thank God, there has not been a declared name terrorist used for Mujahideen of Kashmir, but we are afraid, because they're coming to that point where they will say, okay, this whole movement is terrorism movement.
The whole movement for Kashmir liberation or something?
Yes, yes.
You?
Yes.
They would call you a terrorist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah. They called Mandela that. They locked him up for 27 years.
Yeah. Just because all I'm asking is that implement resolution of UN.
Yeah. They've been more ignored by the Kashmir issue than they were by the Israeli ignoring of pronouncements by the General Assembly. And even And now they've just made this thing. It must be upsetting. They just made this deal. Mr. Bush goes over and says India should become a big atomic power. They're going to give them atomic power. So the balance
and economic power.
And economic power. Yeah, they've signed on with that, and then gave the back of his hand, in a certain sense, to Pakistan.
And that gives
Islam.
India even more right to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Whatever
because they want to be a regional superpower, like Israel's a regional or seem to be.
Right.
But that's being questioned there.
Yes.
And then the question is whether or not that would be affected there. The Kashmir issue is extremely important. You said it earlier. They're two nuclear powers.
Right.
And they're at very strong animus there. That goes back a long time.
Right.
And it's something the world should really pay careful attention to.
Definitely. There are two superpowers next to each other.
I beg your pardon?
This kind of example you don't have in the world, where you have two superpower, border to border, and they are
with
enemies
atomic weapons.
The atomic winners, and they have a history of 3-4 wars among each other.
That's right. Bangladesh went, 72.
And they are both nuclear, and I think this is something very important for the world to see.
Absolutely.
And intervene.
And the Kashmir mission here in the United States, you were representing for a long time Pakistanis overseas and everything. You're a very important mission, a very important representative of that, and I really thank you for that, for running or being chairman of that great group of people, the Kashmir mission. I think it would be good if maybe you people might start thinking about, I suggested it to you, and put you on the spot. I think you ought to start getting some video. Maybe you can start doing a program about that in order to inform the American people with multimedia, which I think might be a good idea. Maybe we can get you over here to do a program possibly.
Well, I tell
don't
you,
want to put you on the spot, but
no,
it would really be helpful to fill in a gap that we need.
And I thank you very much for even giving me this idea, and I'm sure I would like to kind of work on this idea as quickly as possible.
Well, I got a bunch of people I think that could jump in and help with you in putting that together in order to illuminate another area of injustice and flashpoint in the world that should be addressed by understanding, which is the best antidote against something.
You've always been very helpful on this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.